Now, in nearly all sports, the Pythagorean Theorem has applications to figure out just how likely is a team to win a given match if you know how many points they're expected to score and how many points they're expected to allow. If you have a right angle triangle with sides A, B, and a hypotenuse C, C, you can describe the length of it as the square root of A squared plus B squared. Now, in NFL, consider a team that scores 40 points a game and allows 30 points a game. I picked this because it's an easy number with a 3, 4, 5 triangle. You know the hypotenuse would be 50. The Pythagorean Theorem, as it applies to NFL, says to figure out the win percentage, expected win percentage of a team, you take the points it will score squared divided by the hypotenuse, which is the sum of the points squared, points for squared, points allowed squared. And in this case, if you were scoring 40 points a game, squared is 1600, you were allowing 30, then the hypotenuse is 40 squared plus 30 squared is 50 squared, or 2500. You're expected to win about 64% of your games, or in a 16-game season, about 10.25 games. When we look at last year's points scored and points allowed for each team and make projections forward, we're actually doing handicapping. So when we're trying to predict how many games a team is going to win using last year's results, that's really not that any different than trying to predict how many teams, how a team will do in a given week this year. But there are some improvements we can make on last year's statistics, and there are two of them I like to make when I'm doing season win projections. The first is what I'll call a turnover adjustment. You look at a team's net turnover differential, and if it got lucky on turnovers, you penalize it 3.2 points for each positive differential. And if a team was unlucky, then you award it an extra 3.2 points. Now, why do you do this? A lot of studies have showed about 80% of turnovers are luck-based, and the value of a turnover in the NFL is about 4 points. So if a team has been lucky or unlucky, and you can find a way to remove that luck from assessing it, you're going to have a better picture of how this team is likely to do going forward. So that's one little handicapping trick. Now there's another thing. You say, well, don't teams change from year to year? And yes, teams change a lot. And you can try to guess on, how much of a difference will a coaching change for Seattle make, or a new quarterback, or a draft. And I don't know. It may make a big difference, it may not. But there's one thing that's pretty true about all teams, and that is there's this strong gravity that pulls all teams towards an 8-8 record. If you pick any team now and you say, well, how will this team be doing 10 years from now? Your best guess is going to be 8-8. The way I adjust then for off-season changes, without even looking at drafts or roster changes, is I will take a weighted average. I'll take whatever average I had, and I'll give a weighting of that stat 3/4, and I'll give a weighting of 1/4 towards 8 wins. So that gradually pulls it towards 8. How much is half a game worth on a season wins bet? This is an easy question to answer, at least looking at the value of the 8, using a binomial distribution. A binomial distribution will tell you what are the odds of, for example, if you flip a coin 16 times, getting exactly 8 heads. And this is very similar to an NFL season wins game where you have 16 games and you want to see the odds of winning exactly 8 games. And one way to do this is to use Excel and the binomial distribution function. When you're in Excel, you just type equals binom dist, parentheses, and here the first number is the number you're testing. So for example, 8 would be 8 wins. The second number is how many trials out of 16 games. The third number, 0.5, is the odds of winning each game. And false means you're not adding up the outcomes of 0 through 7. You're only interested in the odds of getting an 8. If you change this to true, you'd be calculating the odds of a team winning 8 or less games. And if you put this into Excel, you'll see that the odds of a team winning exactly 8 games out of 16, if they have a 50-50 chance of winning each game, is almost 20%. Now some of you are going to say, but wait, what about home field advantage? Wouldn't a more accurate way to describe this to assume they'll win 8 of their games 60% of the time and 8 of them 40% of the time? Yes, that would be a little bit more accurate, and there's a way you can use the binomial distribution to do that also. You could take the sum of a sequence. You could take the sum of a binomial distribution of winning 0 games out of 8 at a 40% chance, and then winning 8 out of 8 at a 60% chance. And then you do that for all possible ways to win exactly 8 games. So winning 7 games at home and 1 on the road, and winning 6 games at home and 2 on the road. And if you do that, it still comes out to be very close to 20%. So I don't think you're losing much accuracy assuming 20% odds of hitting the 8. Now, if the odds of a team winning exactly 8 games at home are, for an average team, it's about a 20% occurrence, that means if you're betting over 7.5 on a team that should win 8 games, the fair price in over 7.5 is about minus 150. So if one of these games, one of these lines for a season wins is even off a half a game, players have a huge advantage. So what I try to do is I look for games that are at least a full game off, and if I find that, well, you can't really bomb away because the limits are small, but the reason the limits are small is because this market is very beatable. The top 5 plays I found based on what I projected versus the market price at Pinnacle are here. Priced at Pinnacle: Buffalo over 5 minus 111, Houston over 8 minus 123, Indianapolis under 11 minus 134, San Diego under 11 minus 124, and Arizona over 7.5 minus 115. Now, some people ask, can you really come up with winning plays just doing this little amount of work? And on small markets, yes, you can. Another question people often ask is, why should I bother tying up my money for 3 or 4 months? Now, on these types of futures, it's not uncommon to hold 10%. So if you're going to get a 10% return over 4 months, that's 30% annually a year. That's a lot better than how the stock market or banks are doing it. I'd much rather keep my cash tied up in futures. If you have any gambling related questions, feel free to send an email to me, justin@sportsbookreview.com. If you enjoyed this kind of analysis or actually want to go a lot deeper, take a look at my book coming out in August, Conquering Risk. It'll be available at the SBR store and on Amazon.